Typically, because we're in our left brain and kind of going in circles, we can't figure it out, right? And then that creates self-doubt. But something transformative happens when we enter our right brain and we start doing a little bit of playing and a little bit of letting go. And then all of a sudden, the insight's there.
When you think about your professional development, how often do you turn to a box of crayons? Okay, stay with me. But what if I told you that tapping the right side of your brain and fostering your creativity could indeed help you be more successful? Hi, this is Diana Bernal with Corner Office Latinas. I'm a career strategist who guides ambitious Latinas through major career moves so they can reach their goals. Today, I speak with MFT Myriam Martinez, an art therapist who does art-based coaching. Myriam shows us how tapping your creative side can help you break through in your professional life and can be a lot of fun. Let's jump in. Hi, Myriam. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Diane. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, when we think about advancing our careers, we often think about the traditional professional development, like project management or communication skills. And those things are helpful and wonderful, but we don't always think about tapping our creative side and how that can help us. So talk to us a little bit about how tapping your creativity can actually help us at work.
Yeah, definitely. I love talking about this. It's my favorite subject because you're right. People don't really pay attention to that. They don't think of it as something that's important or valuable in their professional world. And when I hear you talk about what I call left brain stuff, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of the direction that we mostly go in when we're, in business or in our profession. What I immediately think about is how I see the left brain is this very limited, like a little box almost. Mm-hmm. And it's a wonderful, wonderful part of our brain, right? It can accomplish so many awesome things, but it's very limited. And there's a place where I say, kind of hit a wall, right? Mm-hmm. And that's usually when people start getting really frustrated because they're starting to get into thinking loops, kind of going back and forth between, should I do this? Should I do that? Or, that kind of a thing. They can't get out of that circle. And that's how it then becomes kind of limited because it's hard, I should say, to get past that. But when I think about the right brain, right, and like my whole facial expression changes and everything, right, when I bring it up, it's like, wow, it's this expansive place that has no limits. It has none, right? It just goes on forever. So if you visualize a little box versus like this expansive meadow or something, it's like, even the sensation in your body feels different with that visual, right? So when we tap into our right brain and creative practices, we're actually creating more balance for ourselves, right? And it's actually strengthening our left brain processes as well. And that is empowering.
Yeah, when you talk about balance, it makes me think also about the executives who are really just super stressed. They are operating on all cylinders. They're going too fast. Is part of your work helping people slow down a minute so that they can either find more balance and harmony or notice things because they haven't been able to notice because they've been going so fast?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's a huge part of what I do because, when we're living in that kind of energy, we're often in our heads exclusively. And so we're not having this connection to our body, to our senses. And when we're not connected to that, then we're not connected to our inner wisdom. And so that makes it harder to make effective decisions or trust yourself, feel confident in what you're doing. And when self-doubt starts to creep in, that can very, very easily take us down a pretty dark rabbit hole, right?
Yeah.
And so with the creative practice, when we're actually teaching our brain to slow down, teaching our body to kind of recognize, oh, this is kind of nice when we slow down a little bit. I think I might want to hang out here more.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Right?
I definitely would love to do that. So tell me a little bit about how the clients come to you, because I think about people that I work with who need help in their careers. And their first question is, I need help finding a job. Can you help me finding a job? And that's all well and good. But
Yeah,
as we talk, we realize that it's something deeper, that they have fear of change or they have
yeah.
anxiety or stress about making a big move. So is that similar with you, that people come to you for one thing and they realize it's a little different? Or how does that conversation unfold when a client first starts talking to you?
It's actually like a really fun experience for me. I love sitting with people in their developmental process, but I feel like I have two different kinds of clients that show up. I have clients that are like, I don't know what's wrong with me.
Oh,
Right? Like, I don't know, I'm working really hard. I have this successful career. I'm in a C suite. I have all the things, and I've accomplished all the things, but yeah, I just don't feel good, about myself. I have anxiety or I'm stressed out or I feel imbalanced, that kind of a thing. And so on the surface, it looks like we're doing stress management work. But then the deeper part is, again, having that more balanced experience through the right brain practices and then having that deeper connection to yourself. And then that's when you
mm-hmm.
kind of go, oh, wait, I think I've just been going way too fast and not really
Yeah.
thinking about myself and my
Mm-hmm.
well-being, right? And then the
Mm-hmm.
second client is just so tired of being tired, right?
Yeah.
It's just so tired. It's like yeah, I'm so tired. I can tell by what you're saying that I need to slow down, but I don't know how.
Yeah. So they're a little bit more tuned.
Yeah, exactly. So it's two variations, but either way, I think oftentimes, executive professionals, because they're so accomplished and they've done so much and they're successful on their professional ladder, so to speak, they don't think that they can struggle or that they can have vulnerable experiences or and
Mm-hmm.
then we live in a society that says push through, get over it,
Oh,
that kind
yeah.
of thing. And so when it comes to like emotional intelligence, and mental health management, there's not a lot of attention paid to that when that is a huge component, right, of your overall well-being and then being able to think clearly and operate effectively in your job, right? And so we kind of live more under this guise of like, leave it at the door, like don't bring your personal life into this. And it's like, well, that's literally impossible in some ways because you are the person in your life and you are the person in your job. That person doesn't change, right? Does that mean that we come to a meeting and cry every time? No, of course, we have to have some containment, and that's where emotional management comes in, right? But to me, I see it as like, we have a right arm and we decide we're just not going to use that right arm. I don't know. I don't know why.
Right.
And now things are harder because I don't have use of this other part of my body, right? And so that's how I see the creative brain. It's like something's missing. I don't have all of my tools, right? But once I start integrating that part and I start getting more connected with myself, right? More grounded, all of that, wow, things starts to feel really expansive. And that's what I notice in the work with clients. I mean, oftentimes I see the women that come into my work, I literally visually see them as small. Like it doesn't matter like their size, but I can feel them, having shrunk down. And I'm like, oh boy, let's do some watering, right? Let's do
Yeah.
some nurturing. Let's do clearly this is what's missing here because you have all of the other things. Right. So once we start getting into the creative practice, then immediately things start to happen. I think, and that's my favorite part of this as a well-being tool is that typically because we're in our left brain and kind of going in circles, we can't figure it out. Right. And then that creates self-doubt. But something transformative happens when we enter our right brain and we start doing a little bit of playing and a little bit of letting go. And then all of a sudden, the insight's there. And that's what I've noticed over the course of my career for over 20 years. It doesn't matter. We can just be doodling, and all of a sudden, there's an answer to a question. And maybe not even a question you knew you needed to ask. I mean, that's the beauty of it, right? Of the internal insight.
Yes. And I think that's a real part of the slowing down, not really knowing what the questions were that you were supposed to be asking. And only when you stop and slow down a little bit can you get in touch with whatever those issues are. And I also want to say that you just mentioned emotional intelligence. And you must be a little psychic because last week's episode that I just dropped was about emotional intelligence.
Oh my
So
gosh.
folks need to listen to these two episodes back to back. But tell us a little bit more about what art therapy really looks like, the different types of things that you do with your clients.
First of all, it's so much fun. You know what I mean? And I like to start with folks, it all depends, kind of their comfort level with, art and that kind of a thing. But most of us, start off pretty locked into like, this is not for me. I'm not good at it. It's for kids. It's like some kind of luxury. So I usually do start with some kind of doodling, practice. And what I love about doodling is that it takes you immediately out of your head because there's no thought to it. I mean, our brain tries to pop in, like, oh, I wonder if I'll do it right. And it's like, we're talking about doodling.
There is no right or wrong.
So let go. And as soon as that happens, things start to move and things start to flow. And that's what we're really looking for. We're trying to find that flow state, right?
Yes.
That's just filled with wisdom and insight and revelations, right? That help us trust ourselves. Because once the insight comes and we get the answer, it's like, oh, wow, that came from me. It's like, yes, it's been there all along. It's just that you've been in your head, right? And can't access that.
Right. And you needed to tap the other side of your brain to find yourself or to give yourself that space. So you mentioned doodling. Let's talk about your expertise because you are not an artist. And I think a lot of people might think that you have to be an artist to participate in art therapy. So tell us about your journey and how you got to this place.
Oh yeah, I love that. And no, you do not have to have any level of art skill or
Yes.
training or education to benefit from this at all. But I was a preschool teacher for a long time, and I wanted to eventually become a therapist or a psychologist. And I just happened to find an art therapy program in my community. Talk about synchronicity and all that good stuff, right? And I went into the program wanting to help other people, right? Like, oh, this sounds really cool for other people. And of course, it was a requirement of the program that I do 12 units of art, to which I responded probably with some appallment, like, what? Like this, why do I need to do that? Like it's not for me. And I love reflecting on that story, and it makes me like a little misty eyed, like, oh, that's where I was. Like that's where I was at the time that I couldn't even consider, right? That something that I thought could be really good and helpful for other people couldn't be for me, right? And so, of course, the journey started, and because I learned art making as a resource, as a tool, not through technique or any of that stuff. Like traditional art school is like, how can you make this look a certain way, and there's a lot of stress around that because it's not true flow, right? But when you learn to make art just as like, I wonder what's going on inside me, or I'm feeling like this, or God, this is really a block right now. Let me look at this through the art, right? It's a completely different experience because there's no regard to what your skill level, quote unquote. And that was not an easy journey for me because I went to school with a lot of MFAs, trained artists, amazing artists, you know what I mean? And I was kind of in the corner doing like my little stick figures, but and it's okay though, you know what I mean? So I can really relate is what I'm saying to people's apprehension, to all of the thoughts that come into your head about you and your ability. But there's two things that come up for me. I mean, I think one is as a preschool teacher, when a little person, would step up to the easel and get some paint, and start at it, right? And to us, to the eye of the beholder, it might just look like a lot of paint on paper. Mm-hmm. But to the artist, that child's description was very articulate and there was a story and there was something about that for that child. And so immediately what I think when I, reminisce on that is I or no one has really the right to say to that child, that's not art. Mm-hmm. Or you're not an artist, right? And so some of the belief systems about what makes an artist are some of the things that interfere in our ability to connect with the tool, right? That has to be a certain way, or that you have to have a certain skill, or you have to be able to make lifelike images, or anything like that. And it's like, no, that's not what this is. And guess what, everybody? You're an artist too. We're born that way. We're born with the right brain and with the ability to create. How you express that, that's your uniqueness, right? Maybe you like expressing that through painting. Maybe you like to do that through music. Maybe you like to do that through writing, poetry, cooking, gardening,
Ooh,
right? But it
cooking.
doesn't matter. Yeah, exactly. That's an art.
Yeah.
And so to be able to recognize, no, we all have an artist in us. And it's really important to connect to that part of who we are, because when that balance comes, you just feel so much lighter on your feet and life feels so much more enjoyable. I saw some pictures of myself recently at an art retreat that I went to in March. And I have to tell you that when people take pictures of me after I've been art making, I'm noticing a pattern now. I'm like, I look so happy.
Ah,
I look like I'm glowing,
love
and I'm
it.
like, oh my, okay, I'm
Okay.
starting to notice something here. Like I was noticing like how I feel in my body, like how much better I feel, but I wasn't noticing obviously, right, how I look.
Wow.
And I look like I'm in some kind of bliss, or
So I
something.
think the takeaway here is for anyone who is about to get new headshots, they should do some doodling, some art in the morning, and then they're ready to go. But I wonder if so much of what you're talking about is also these letting go of these expectations and the
Hmm.
perfectionism, because I think of
Hmm.
all the successful people we work with, like you were saying earlier, they're succeeding at certain levels, but to do
Hmm.
something fresh where they're not the best at it or it's new to them, it's hard to show up that way in the workplace because we always want to make sure that people think that we know what we're doing. So this is a safe space then, art therapy, to indulge in a different way and sort of overcome that hesitancy, that perfectionism that we think we need to present in different ways.
Oh, I completely agree. That's exactly what it's about because, the art process and the creative expression process is a parallel to life is kind of how I see it. And oftentimes people will ask, well, what's your favorite medium? And I'll say watercolor.
Mm-hmm.
And why? Because watercolor is quite challenging to control and
Ooh.
it kind of likes to do its own thing. And you might have an idea of where you want it to go. And watercolor's like, yeah, no, I kind of like blending with this color more, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's such a parallel experience to life, right? So
Yeah.
watercolor and art making is like life. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'll be good at it. Maybe I shouldn't do it because I don't know if I'll be good at it. And these are like totally normal human responses. Like our brain is like, new things, there's danger out there, right? But we know that if we pick up a paintbrush, nothing bad is going to happen, right? So to take that risk, to take that leap, we exercise that muscle over and over again. And so we bring then that newly developed muscle out into the world, into our life experience, into our work experience. Wow, I'm getting better at not knowing. I'm getting better at letting go. I'm getting better at sitting with the challenging emotions and then knowing that I can move through them. It's like, yeah, because you've been practicing it through the creative process.
You must have some success stories. I'm sure you do. Maybe some people who were hesitant or they just didn't know where to get started. Can you share an example of someone's trajectory and an outcome that they had, maybe that they didn't even anticipate, or that was extremely helpful through your work together?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's so many, but one stands out because it's a humorous experience because my client was a comedian.
I love it.
But, like most of us struggling with like a lot of negative self-talk and, being hard on herself and
Oh,
not
yeah.
believing that she could, be like, make something of herself as a comedian, even though I thought she was hilarious and her audiences would fill and all of that. And so I said, well, let's look at this inner critic, right? Imagine what it feels like. Imagine then colors, shapes, images that come up, around that. And then let's get that on paper a little bit. And so, she sat with it for a while, worked through her doubts about, whether the art was any good, etc. I said, okay, well, let's sit with it. And what I usually do is like I pull up a chair or I ask the client to pull up a chair if we're working virtually. And I say, okay, so now you're sitting with it.
Mm-hmm.
right? Now it's outside of you. What do you want to do? What kind of exchange do you want to have here? Because really it's about reframing your relationship with this part of yourself. There's coaches that say, you can like eradicate your inner critic or, like I'll help you get rid of that inner voice. And I'm like, no, that's not it. That's not how it works. It's about reframing your relationship with it so you can feel more empowered over it. Right. And so what was humorous about it was that she said, oh my God, Miriam, I think that's my mom in drag.
Oh God, I love it. Yes.
That was hilarious. And again, I always have this disclaimer, Diana, when like parents come up, it's like, okay,
Oh,
everybody take a breath, right?
yeah.
Because when we talk about, our life experiences, which includes our childhood experiences with our families, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's never about looking at anybody as bad or good. It's about gathering information that helps you learn more about yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
in that moment, she learned so many things about herself, what was happening for her. And then we kept working with that imagery outside of herself so that she can interact with it when it showed up versus, letting it take her for a ride. And,
Yeah.
her career progressed and she kept going and she's doing really well, in her comedy stances and stuff, and I'm just so proud of her and happy for her because that's what she finds. I mean, she even went as far as to say, God, working with you gives me a lot of good material.
Oh, that's true. She should use it in her stand up because there are
Exactly.
skeptics. I mean, I think of all the different trainings and team buildings that I've been to, and anyone in corporate America can relate to, whether it was the Legos or Tinker Toys or build a bridge with your coworkers. And, those things can be helpful. But when I met you at a conference and all of a sudden in the afternoon after lunch, some crayons showed up on the table. And I thought, okay, here we go. What is this? And I was skeptical, but then I was hooked and I definitely saw the value and I wanted to actually keep going. But the agenda had to keep moving on. So I wonder, there's got to be some skeptics out there. So I guess I'm sending this message to the skeptics to check out Miriam's work or to think about this because too often, we don't pay attention to what we really need. And art therapy can be one way to discover what's going on.
Oh, absolutely. And again, create more balance and well-being in your life as well.
Yes. Okay. So let's talk about some tips. I know you have workshops and I'll drop some links to your work in the show notes, but what is one thing that someone can do today after they listen to this episode? What's one thing they can do to start tapping the right side, the creative side?
I'm going to talk directly to the skeptics,
Yes.
right? And this is usually my script. I keep things very kind of logical for them, right? And it's kind of what I said before, to not exercise, and that's the word, right? Exercise your right brain and everything that can come with that is the equivalent of saying, I think I'm just not going to use my right arm. And you're going to feel that. You're going to feel that. You're going to feel the imbalance of that. You're going to feel that things are harder, right? And you're wondering what's going on. It must be me. And it's like, no, no, no. Let's look at this for what it actually is. There's plenty of research on this now. I think CNN just came out with an article, and I think the title of it was something like "How to Improve, Your Life by 10 Years," and it was all about creative practices and art making. And I was like, okay, so we're going mainstream now.
Yes.
Nice,
Yes. Put
right?
that on your
Like,
homepage, Miriam.
the art therapy community's known that for a gazillion years, right? And we're like, oh, yay, the rest of the world is catching up. And so the data is starting to show up. It's out there. And so that's how I reach my skeptics. There's data behind this. There's science behind this, right? And then there's just like this practical aspect of using your whole body all the time, right? And that this is a part of your body. And for the people that are ready to play, right? And even to the skeptics, see what happens if you pick up a pen and you just start moving it across a page.
Yeah, that's it.
Right? And you're going to notice all the things, all the thoughts are going to come in for the first few minutes and just keep going. And all of a sudden you're going to notice that stops. And you're going to notice that your body changes, right? As dopamine is released, right? As serotonin is released, as oxytocin is released, right? You're going to feel different. And that's actually the feedback that I got from that conference last year too, Diana, is I had so many people coming up to me afterwards going, I feel different. It's like, yes, I know. don't stop.
Don't stop. And good segue, because you mentioned it is an exercise. So it reminds me of yoga. And when we talk about yoga, it's a practice. You never accomplish maximum yoga. You go at it every day or once a week or however often. So this creativity is something that, for those who are open to trying something new, and I would suggest it, especially if you, like you mentioned earlier, people are climbing the corporate ladder. They've got these great jobs, but there's still something out of whack, right? They're missing something. That this could be something different that they try and do it maybe once a week. If you're lucky enough to find time to do it once a day, good for you. But if not, maybe just on a Sunday morning, or just give it a shot and give yourself, for the type A's out there, if you have to give yourself a goal, go ahead and say that for 4 Sundays, I'm going to just doodle in the morning, first thing when I get up, and then kind of see how it unfolds.
Yeah, see what happens. Yeah, be curious about it. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Absolutely.
Good. So, okay, Myriam, so where can people find you?
Oh my goodness. Well, they can go to my website, MyriamMartinezCoaching.com. And actually on there, I have a free Doodle Your Stress Away webinar that people can sign up for. And they get 3 emails from me where I teach them essentially how doodling helps. And I give all the neuroscience around it and stuff. It's really fun. I'm also on LinkedIn and on Instagram and on Facebook, so people can find me anyway. And I love people, reaching out and connecting. So don't hesitate to reach out and connect.
And those of us lucky to be at the Take Charge conference on August 9th, we will get to see you in person.
Yes, I'm so excited about that.
We're excited to bring you back. I know the Lean In Latinas group was really thrilled with your participation last year. So thank you for that. And I will see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Take care. Thanks, Myriam.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. For more, visit cornerofficelatinas.com, where we give you the framework, inspiration, and support you need to reach and thrive in the corner office. We have some free downloads on the website, where you can also sign up for our e-news, so we can keep you posted on workshops and events coming up that you will not want to miss. That's cornerofficelatinas.com. See you next week.